This is the Living Numbers Podcast.
This is the Living Numbers Podcast. I am your host, Tony Ramos. And I have a great episode for you all today. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will see that I have two esteemed guests. You don't know that they're esteemed yet, but I'll tell you why. But first and foremost, got to do some housekeeping. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Rate and review 5 stars. Okay, throw some comments on there. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you click the little bell icon so when you know when the episodes are coming out. You can follow me on IG at _Tony Rambles _ and you can email the show oneTonyRambles@gmail.com. Help us grow the channel. So I have my two guests here, and y'all know how we do when we have guests. We got to have an intro. And so I wrote this while we were eating pizza.
It was good, y'all.
It was good. Domino's, shout out, extra sauce. And you all don't know this, but it has taken us, I don't know, maybe 2 hours to get this all set up. So there's a ton of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that doesn't seem that hard, but sometimes you just got to work through your issues, all right? That's a word for somebody right now. But here we go. Best dressed couple at our wonderful Inspiration Church.
Doesn't look like it now, but that's okay. Thank you, brother.
Hailing from Pennsylvania and North Carolina, go Wolfpack. By way of Kenya, actually. All right.
Hello.
Lawmakers, life changers, and matchmakers. The Kimani Clubhouse champions. Daryl and Santana. Say hello to the people.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you for having us on Living Numbers
Podcast,
baby.
So these are, I mean, what was it? Maybe a year ago?
Yeah, we moved back. Me was to come back to Houston April of 2021. For my wife, it was the first time.
So these two have a ton of stuff going on, which we'll obviously get into. And the first thing that I always tell people that they're lawyers.
Woo.
So they just recently passed the bar, like 6 months ago?
Yeah, October.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they just got married last year. So shout out to you two.
Making moves.
Okay, so I guess, you guys can start anywhere you want right here. Because, we're going to touch on, like, a lot of different stuff. Let's start here, since I brought up y'all being lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
Just, how was that process? Like, going from, college to law school, and now you got to pass the bar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it was a very large, I had a big gap between undergrad and law school. So I worked for 8 years. I graduated in 2010, started law school 2018. Wife started at the same time. She had a year gap, I had an 8-year gap. So that gives you kind of the age difference perspective, which is cool. But yeah, so for me, I think it's great having worked before going to law school and career transitioning. I was an engineer. Now I'm a lawyer. And I think the transition, being an engineer before becoming a lawyer, even though there are a bunch of people starting their careers who are much younger than me making the same money, which is really good money, to work at an international law firm doing corporate law, which is what I do. Make great money, but I'm like, damn, I could have been making this 6-7 years ago. Why didn't I do it sooner? But I also just appreciate the fact that I come in with already that professional white collar experience.
Right.
And a lot of the stuff my colleagues are learning on the fly, I already have had that experience. Now, being a lawyer, knowing what I need to know to practice law is obviously different than what I need to do to practice engineering. But a lot of the bureaucracy,
Right.
Politics of the office.
Yeah, I was just about to say the
it's
office
exactly,
politics.
It's the same thing. And knowing how to craft an email, like how to communicate a message across to your teammates, how to take ownership. Those are things I had bringing in. Yeah. And I almost think that's how I add value to my organization where I'm at, that maybe, and I don't know if my colleagues will watch the podcast, but like, I think that's the value that I bring, that I'm even in a way able to mentor them, because I've had that professional experience. And some of them even reached out to me telling me, Gerald, this particular thing has stressed me out, and I'm able to kind of give them wisdom, give them a little guidance on it.
Yeah, I kind of feel that same way, because I started teaching at 28-ish as opposed to being right out of college.
21.
And not having worked really anywhere besides like retail or anything like that. So I was able to kind of bring some of those skills with me, because I'm like, well, this is not my first job. Yeah. Like, I've done a whole bunch of other stuff, which I talked about on one of my previous episodes. I think it was maybe 32 with my brother. I've had about 20 different jobs.
20.
Wow.
20 different jobs. Yeah. There were a few jobs that I forgot to even mention. But we're not talking about me. We're going to go over to Santana and talk about your experience, I guess, just like he did, like from your transition from like undergrad to law school, and then you can jump into how you two met.
Yeah, so for me, I went to Wilkes University undergrad. No one's ever heard of Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, but we're close to Scranton, Pennsylvania. So
Scranton!
If you watch The Office, I went to school around there, and it really is a middle of nowhere type of town.
Shout out to Pastor Carlos. He says I make sure that I have an office reference in every episode. There you go. I know he's going to listen to this, so shout out to you. Continue.
So yeah, I was actually a biochemistry major undergrad, and my plan was to go into the medical field in some capacity. But I decided to take classes that had nothing to do with my major. I took sociology classes, criminology classes, and I just got really interested in race and the law and civil rights. And so I always tell people, don't be afraid to just go out on a limb, do stuff that you're interested in. Don't be so laser focused on, this is my career, so I'm only going to take classes about my career. Because you could take that one class and realize, this is what I'm meant to be.
Right. She actually went into school and she was saying that she didn't go for, she's what is that when you go for like healthcare administration? She didn't go for that, but as she took business classes, she kind of realized that she liked business and that she didn't want to work in pharmacy because of all of I think she said it was a lot of math. So, but keep going.
Yeah, definitely. And don't be afraid to even fail sometimes. Like, just try out different things. That's how you figure out what you're good at, what you're not good at.
Yeah.
And, don't be too hard on yourself. At the end of the day, the way we measure who becomes a lawyer is if you pass the bar. So even if you pass with the lowest score, we call that person attorney.
Yep.
So that's it.
It's totally indifferent.
You got to just make it through.
Nobody knows a year from now whether you passed with a 350 or a 270, which was at least the minimum in Texas. I'm not going to say what our scores were. They were pretty close, but we were above the minimum. We'll say that. But we're still lawyers.
If you find me on social media, I published mine.
Okay. You want to plug your social media? Okay, wait. We'll get there. We'll actually... Okay, I have stuff in the works if you have not figured it out. Okay, so y'all met in law school.
Right.
What school was that?
So she went to Villanova. I went to University of Pennsylvania.
Philadelphia love story.
Yeah.
Hey, that sounds good.
It's like a little movie.
It does sound like a movie or a play or something. Something that has to be published. Okay.
All right.
Continue.
So we met through a friend of mine. He was attending a boot camp, which I wasn't aware of. It was a pre-law school boot camp. Like, law school starts in September. Boot camp was in August of 2018. That's when we started law school. And he had put together kind of a social outing, disconnected from the boot camp, but it included the people in the boot camp.
Right, like a mixer.
Right, a mixer. I went. He was like, yeah, let's link up. Hey, I'm out with a few people. Pass through, and she happened to be there. And I mean, the rest is history.
That's the short way to tell a story. Always, the rest was history.
But I'm sure he wants more.
Of course, this is the platform. You can Give us the essence.
That was a segue from my wife to chip in.
Well,
your turn.
Like he said, we went to the pre-law boot camp for mostly first-generation students. It was run by Philadelphia Diversity Law Group. Shout out. Basically to teach us how to do law school. You know, there's a lot of legacy kids, and if you're the first year, you have no idea what's going on. So I went to this program. I think it was in the evenings. It was like for 3 nights. And afterwards, the kids, well, I say kids, we're adults. The students from there would go, you know, to different local bars and stuff like that for kind of like networking, grab a drink after the class was over. And although Gerald did not go to the class, like he said, one of his friends who went to the class had invited him out. And so I met him at that networking event. And
was it love at first sight?
I don't know. I feel like we were playing it cool, right? Because it was like a networking event. Like, I didn't want to, like, it was like my first week in Philadelphia. Like, I didn't even know anyone. I was like, oh, we're just, you know, networking. And
it's 2018. Like, it's not even cool to be like, dang, like, she fine. Let me just walk up to her right now. You can't even do stuff like that. I remember, like, when I was younger, you just walk up and say, what's up? But I feel like that's frowned upon these days. That's so weird to me.
Yeah, I remember talking to Gerald. He said that he went to UPenn. And I remember him
That's an Ivy League school, right?
Right. So my ears were like, and he casually spoke about maybe one day becoming CEO of a major tech company.
Was that the first day?
Yeah, I remember that. That was at Ladder 15, Philadelphia. Great place, great place.
Wow. Okay.
And afterwards, back in those days when I would do a bit of drinking, I would get really hungry, and I always craved mac and cheese from Cheesecake Factory. That was my thing after a late night.
Cheesecake Factory.
So that night, I was with some people, and after I met him, I was like, oh, we're going to Cheesecake Factory to get some mac and cheese. And he's like, I'll be the gentleman and walk with you ladies. Okay,
so was that strategic, or you was like, yeah, you know, I'll just walk the ladies out? Or was you like, I got to make sure I walk with her and make sure she...
I think it was more the latter. Shooting my shot.
Yeah, like, okay, yeah.
I mean, I was the only guy, 3 girls and 1 guy.
So you could just pick?
Something.
There's no competition, right? There's no other guy, so, you know, it's like,
okay. I mean, my friend was dating a girl at the time, another friend of mine. So, and they're engaged to be married now. So
nice.
But yeah, like
so
nobody else was making those moves, man. I was just trying to be bold, and they let me tag along. So
get in where you fit in.
That's it.
Okay, so you got your mac and cheese?
Oh, I got the mac and cheese.
Right.
Okay, so when did y'all like start dating? When did it become like, I think this is the way to go?
I think about a month later. It was like mid-September. We had been exploring up to that point. We met a couple times over Labor Day weekend. Yeah.
Then it was like, what'd you say? How did it happen? Oh,
it wasn't for me. It was very direct. I knew what I wanted, and I said, this is kind of the way I envision my relationship. Like, first thing is you got to be committed to Jesus. I'm not gonna walk with somebody who's not walking the same walk.
Mm-hmm. And what'd you say?
I mean, I think I was fine with that. I grew up in the church, but at the time that we met, I wasn't living the way I should have been. I wasn't a member of any church.
Right. You was in the streets.
I was in these streets.
Okay. And then what'd you say after that?
I was like, so what do you think about that? Like, we gonna have a church that we go to every Sunday.
That is direct.
Yeah, like.
He said his intentions were long-term marriage. Like, he's not just trying to date to date.
Did that spark your interest?
Yeah, I mean, I like the directness. I hate the talking culture, like people who talk for years. Like, what are you talking about? Nothing important.
It's time to stop talking and start doing.
Okay.
Take some action. Okay, and so I guess now we can say the rest was history.
If you wish.
No. Wait, how'd you propose?
We took a trip to DC.
Nice.
DC is what, 2.5, 3 hours from Philly? Yeah. Proposed. We couldn't get right in front of the White House because there was some action right in front of the White House that day.
Because
the building right
boy
next
was
to
in
it.
office at that time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
2019 September.
something was going on. They had police barricades, everything. So we had to go to the building right next to it. It was the Eisenhower building or something like that. Whatever was going on.
That's not what you envisioned, though, right? You like the Eisenhower building. I didn't want that one. I wanted the White House.
I mean, the actual proposal happened in an art gallery. That's like where the real proposal happened. But we had someone take, you have to have the pictures. We did the live one, like the real one was just intimate. But like
nobody was around, just y'all two.
I mean, there were a few people around. A few people saw it. I mean, it was an art gallery, so it was kind of open to the public. So some people saw it. Yeah. But it was kind of dim and dark, so we couldn't get good photos.
Oh.
So we kind of did it.
I'll have to send you this so you
Look
can
at
show
that.
the podcasters.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I gave y'all these people's story because, and here's our first number, so late into the show. All right, the average American spends $165 on Valentine's Day, which this is February. It is the love month. And these two are matchmakers. Real life matchmakers.
Yes, we launched a matchmaking agency in 2021. I guess I'm more of the matchmaker. He's like the business leader, looking at strategies, figuring out
the tech.
Something like that.
And the finances.
Like social media, it's like social media is integrated with technology. Social media is critical in voicing our business, advertising our business.
Right.
So we're on every, I think, social media platform: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook.
What's the name of it, and what are the platforms? How can people find you?
Yeah, so the name of our agency is Stellar Matchmaking. That's STELLAR.
Stellar.
So you can Google us. You can look us up on LinkedIn. We are on Instagram, on Facebook. I recently made a Twitter. I'm new to Twitter, y'all, but I've been tweeting. So on Twitter, we're at stellar_match. But most places, if you just type in Stellar Matchmaking or go to stellarmatchmaking.com, all of our socials are linked there. So yeah, I am an attorney turned matchmaker. I think one of the only in the country.
There we go. Okay. I have some trivia for y'all.
All right. What's up?
What's the longest running matchmaking show on TV?
The Love Connection.
Is that show still on?
Oh, you mean that's still on now? Oh, yeah. Bachelor.
20 years, The Bachelor.
Yeah.
2002. And I always see that show. I'm like, who's watching this garbage?
Oh, wow. You feel strong.
A lot of people. A lot of people are watching it. Because I'm like, this cannot be real.
People are fascinated. Love fascinates people.
It does.
Particularly if it's dirty and grimy.
And yeah, I guess that's what The Bachelor is.
Raunchy?
Yeah, that's probably.
I mean, I don't watch that. So some of this stuff, like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, do y'all watch any of those shows? Those kind of shows?
Yeah, we've done Love at First Sight.
And 90 Day Fiance, I feel like, is our guilty pleasure. But now we just watch like the Happily Ever After. We just follow the couples, after the 90 days.
Oh, okay, yeah. Those are relatively new. Me and Kia have watched those as well, like just the Married at First Sight. Because it's like, so Kia's watching it in the room. And I'm always out in the living room playing video games. Right now I'm playing NHL 21, so...
You do hockey?
Yeah, I'm from Detroit, hockey town.
Oh, my God.
So we grew up with a good team, the Detroit Red Wings. Mm-hmm. So that kind of got me into hockey from the very beginning. Like, if you have a good team, you want to support the team. Whether you are really into the sport or not, you know, you support the team. So that got me into hockey. So hockey games are really fun, but we're not here to talk about hockey games. We're here to talk about love at first sight. So I would pop into the room just to like bother my wife, just to say, hey, what you doing? Or to give her a kiss or whatever. And the show is on where people are meeting each other for the first time on their wedding day. I'm like, no way. But that kind of story is intriguing, I would say, to see people trust whatever process that is. I was like, okay. So like I found myself just right along with her, following these 3 couples and seeing just how the journey goes. Because at that point, I think we had been married for 6 years, because this was a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so being a married person and taking my marriage very seriously, I just thought like, okay, could this even work to see these 3 couples? And you see like, how do they start? And if you see that they start off like, well, then you go, okay, maybe there may be something. But did you see there's like all this arguing and stuff right at the very beginning?
Yeah.
You go, Now it's not supposed to be that hard right now. But, so do those shows influence y'all at all? Or, you know what? Better question. How did this start?
The matchmaking.
How did it start?
Yeah, so definitely a lot different than the shows. We don't set up people on their wedding days. But yeah, so for me, I think the idea for it was really birthed on a road trip to Atlanta. We drove from Houston to Atlanta for a wedding. We thought it would be fun, a little road trip. We might not do that again in the summer, but it was an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And
from where?
Like Houston to Atlanta, and then we drove
It's a
back.
13-hour drive.
I've driven to Detroit before. Multiple times.
So then this
So
is
24-hour drive. I got you. I totally understand.
I didn't realize, at least for my car, the AC went out on the drive back.
In that BMW?
Yeah,
Take
but I
that
think.
thing back,
But
man.
let
That
me
was
let
in
me
like
tell you,
September.
you might think it's like something broke, but it really is just like, I think it's so computerized that maybe it knew, like, if we kept running this AC, it'd burn it out. Something would happen. So I think the car computer shut it off, because by the time we got back and my car had time to breathe and not drive anywhere for a few days, the AC kicked back on.
It's a machine.
And actually, I deliberately turned it off for some of the ride there, but then we were sweating. It was 90 degrees
The
outside.
ultimate driving machine, AC, kicks off at some point.
Right. So
That's
we turned it
garbage.
off and we stopped at a gas station and got some ices to cool us off. And then I turned it on maybe about 2 hours later. I was like, my wife was just.
I'm notorious for not turning on the AC, especially if it's a nice day. I like to roll the windows down.
Yeah, it's just there's no nice days in September in the South. It was hot. It was 90 degrees. And if you we had to roll the windows down. You know how it is. You driving 80 miles an hour with the windows down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
That
tragic.
hot wind.
Yeah.
So that's why we're probably. And back then I hadn't started working yet, so there was no money coming in. We're just taking a bar and we were just trying to survive until I started getting paid.
There you go.
So now that we're getting paid, we're probably not going to be inclined to do a
Turn
road
off the
trip.
AC. Okay.
Do a road trip.
Unless we do it for our next business idea, because that brought about a business idea.
Okay, road trip to Atlanta. Continue.
So while we were on the road trip, we were talking about different things. I always had an entrepreneurial mind, I guess.
Yeah.
At least coming out of law school, I decided I wanted to do my own law firm versus working somewhere. And the reason behind that was just flexibility and to be able to have a work-life balance. I know that's so cliche. Everyone says that, I want a work-life balance. But, Gerald works in corporate law, and, if he has a deal going on, it's not unlikely that he might have to work 12 to even 18 hours in a day
That's a long time.
if something needs to happen. So I didn't want both of us working that kind of job, because we do want kids, we want to have a life, we want to have family.
Right.
So for me, coming up with the law firm was like, okay, this will be more flexible, but I don't know, it just wasn't catching on. I wasn't finding my niche area. I wasn't passionate about it. So we're talking, I'm coming up with ideas, and we kind of were joking about it. We were like, maybe we should do matchmaking, because we know like all these single people who want to be married. I feel like we just have a large network of great friends who are great catches, have a lot going for them, but just can't find that person.
Right.
And so this is something people are willing to pay for, and something that we want to happen. So we kind of distinguish ourselves from other agencies sometimes. Every agency kind of has a different goal. For me, I only work with people who want to be married. Like, if you want your next relationship to kind of be your last, like if you want to be engaged within the next 6 months to 2 years, I only work with marriage-minded people.
Right. You're done screwing around. Like, all the BS is over with.
Yeah.
Ready to settle down. I think it's hard for people to find someone that still thinks that way. It is?
I mean, it's not hard hard to find people who think that way, because every time I'm doing interviews or consultations or working on stuff with clients, everyone wants the same thing, right? In the sense that everyone wants to settle down. They want the yard with the fence and the dog and the kids.
No dogs.
Agreed.
No, I don't have anything against dogs, but I don't want to pay for a dog.
I agree.
Just the proverbial dog, you know.
Gotcha.
That's all of them.
A picture of a dog.
But we all want these things, but you know, it's not as rare to find as people think.
But
I think that there's a lot of reasons as to why people are starting to turn back to matchmaking, honestly. You know, in our parents' generations and the generations before that, people met people organically. You didn't have online dating. You might have had matchmakers, but it wasn't as common of a practice, at least not in our culture. But I think a lot of people are turning to it now, one, because people are getting tired of online dating. A lot of people I work with, that's one of the first things they complain about. They're tired of just the low quality people that they've been matched with on online dating sites, and then also the time investment. Like, if you're a busy professional, do you have time to be on there swiping for hours to sift through and
they need somebody else to do the work.
Right. And matchmaking agencies offer that. I'm working, hopefully, a collaboration to start offering that soon, where we do the swiping for you. That's like a whole industry in and of itself.
That's a job on its own. Like, all day you're like, nope, no, yes, no, yes.
And they do the messaging for you. They show you the messages before you go on a date, all that stuff.
So just to clarify, like, matchmaking is a premium. You do pay 5 to 6 figures to have to the matchmaking part. Like, we find, depending on what you pay, we find anywhere from 3 to 12 unlimited people over a period of time, 6 months to a year, let's say.
Right.
And we go out and source a candidate for you. What she's talking about there is somebody who manages your accounts, your dating accounts, at a lower cost than matchmaking.
Still run you a few $1,000s.
Yeah, it's still gonna be 4 to 5 figures for that, but it's cheaper than matchmaking. So we're creating alternatives for our clients depending on their price range and what outcome they want.
So if y'all were not married, say we're all single people, right? Would you use a service like this?
Matchmaking?
Yeah.
I think I would, partly because of the privacy. A lot of people, both men and women that I work with, they're professionals, they have a certain job, like, and they just don't want themselves out there. I can imagine you as a teacher, you wouldn't want to be putting yourself out there on an app. What if your students are on there and see you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, particularly if your students are of age. Like, you can imagine a college professor.
Yeah.
Or just someone who graduates, you know, like maybe
you're 18 now. Right. 18 or 19.
It's awkward.
Right.
Go ahead. Your turn.
Like me, I would say, I mean, I'm a guy, and I don't know, like, I feel like I speak for guys when I say sometimes we can be cheap. So I know, like, for me, if like, going back, and we're cheap, and then we feel like we could get it ourselves. Like, we feel like we don't need somebody else's help. So why go to a matchmaker when I could just do it myself and I could do it at low to no cost? But, you know, also being out in the dating scene, like, you don't know what your outcome's going to be. It's competitive.
Right.
You want the flyest girl or guy, and everybody wants them too. So you got to step up and you got to do something to win that one. I'm fortunate I won mine, but
we both. Shout out to my wife. Hey,
so it's like, it's competitive. You got, like, if you struggle to get yours, and sometimes, like, you could be that guy who, like, you could use the matchmaking, because with matchmaking, like, you get access to candidates that might suit you and might like you in return.
Or people that you're not like readily accessible to.
That's exactly my point. You said it exactly right. Like, we have access to attractive candidates, and you might be that guy who's like, all right, I've been out here, I've been shooting my shot, but I'm also, like, a busy professional, and I just want to outsource this. I just want to focus on my work. I just want to be on my grind, shoot that shot, but also know I want a woman who holds me down and will help me complete my house, my legacy, and what better way to do that than to have a matchmaker on your side?
The person you're looking for, or you may end up being matched with, may not even be in Houston where we are.
Precisely.
They could be anywhere.
Right, and you open the doors.
Nah.
No way.
I would like I like to be out amongst people and talking to people and that kind of stuff. So like you said, I will feel like I can do this on my own. I can find somebody, right? Now I haven't had a date since me and my wife met 2010.
Yeah.
Things are different
2010.
now.
So that's what I hear. Things are very different. My brother, Troy, who was on episode 33, 33, I think. 33 of the Living Numbers podcast. Make sure you go find it, follow, share, download, rate, review.
Yeah.
But when me and my brother was talking, not on episode, but just talking, he was saying like dating is not the same anymore. Like people are just different how they're wired, especially because like we're in our 30s. You're almost 30, right?
I'm 27, turning 28 this year.
So he's like, when we were 19 and 20, like people don't think the same. And so even if you were looking for a 19 or 20 or 21, early 20s year old person, they think even more different than we who are in our 30s think now. So he's like, man, it's the worst.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anyone say like dating is just great. Well, did anyone ever say like dating was this great thing? Have you ever heard that?
I mean, for me personally, I guess I was kind of along the same lines of you. Like, I've never necessarily had to turn to online dating or stuff like that, at least to find a partner. Like, him and I met each other organically. We were out. We were living our life. It was just kind of a given. But I also think COVID has changed a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
And people are looking, and I think a lot of people, when they hear matchmakers, especially in our context, in our culture, they think, oh, these are kind of misfit people, maybe they're socially awkward, like what's wrong with these people? But but a lot of the times it's people who have specific standards and who want results, right? They're tired of online dating, they want the privacy, and really being a matchmaker is a lot like being a lawyer. I feel like I'm kind of representing you, I'm vetting for you. So we do executive matchmaking. So some matchmaking is I'll only match you with people in my database, right? That's kind of how online dating works. Like they have an algorithm, and the matchmaking algorithm will just match you with people in that database. Whereas executive matchmaking is we're going out on the ground, right? Like if you come to me and you're like, I need a cowboy, astronaut, violin playing person.
Sounds like you're
right. I'm like, okay, I'm going to the cowboy astronaut violin playing conference next week, and I'm going to pay the money to get into that conference.
I'm going to wrangle you somebody.
Right, so we're like on the ground, and we're like, I'm a very active person. I'd like to go hiking. I want to do backpacking in Europe. Maybe I'll go to some fitness classes. I'm going to scope people out. I'm going to sit back, catch their vibe. There's a lot of times we're just out at restaurants, and people around us probably have no idea, but I'm scoping out for the client.
So y'all have a questionnaire, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right?
And
so like,
interviews, yeah.
And interviews. Okay, so what kind of questions are y'all asking people?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important questions, people like to answer I want someone this age range, I want someone this race, this height, this profession, but the important questions are your expectations, your beliefs, and how you see your marriage working down the line, because I don't want to just put people together who are going to temporarily be happy. It's important to ask those questions about that long-term expectation, because that's what's going to keep you together. So
these are the questions that really start to separate candidates, because I feel like a lot of people want I want somebody who's smart, I want somebody who's funny, I want somebody who's good looking, right? I want somebody who thinks family is important, who makes money. I think these are all of that's the easy stuff. Right. Okay. Now we have to start getting into details of how do you want to raise children? Our money, is it going to be all together, or do you want all of our money to be separate? Like these very, very specific questions. And then things like, okay, what are the deal breakers? This is kind of how I reasoned it in my mind. Like,
Yeah, we have
what
deal breakers.
There you go. What are the things that you cannot have? Like just absolute no's. I know.
Well, fun fact, 100% of my client and database members have told me that their deal breaker are cigarette smokers.
Wow, so that was my number one.
Everyone doesn't want a cigarette smoker.
I don't want any smoking. Like, to each his own. Like, people gonna do what they're gonna do. But I could not be with someone who who smoked anything, did any kind of drugs. I'm not really an alcohol person. Keep it to a minimum. If you drank alcohol every weekend, that probably wouldn't sit well with me.
Yeah, and those are questions I ask people, like, are you a social drinker once a year, this or that? And I ask details. Like, sometimes people will say, oh, I'm a social drinker, but they only drink like once a year at a wedding. So finding out like exactly those lifestyles, because you're absolutely right. If that's not going to align, it's going to cause problems.
And then religious beliefs, because those a lot of times guide how we run our homes and how we raise our children. So if my girlfriend didn't believe in Jesus and wanted to follow that path, like Gerald said, like there was no way that we could ever do anything or be anything, because that's kind of, at that point, that's how I was guiding my life and how I still do today.
One thing that's crazy though is I have a coworker who's Jewish and her husband is Catholic. How are they able to do that? Like, what do they believe? What their kids believe? I'm just like figuring out, how do you, like, is it you do you, I do me religiously, but somehow we meet in the middle? And I think it's because people find a lot of ethical overlap. I think fundamental ideas about God, you don't have to align on those, but as long as you align on thou shalt not commit adultery, murder, steal, lie, that's cool. We're aligned on that. Jews and Catholics are probably aligned on that, so that's enough just to keep a marriage going. So this is not me endorsing interreligious marriages. This is me just saying some people somehow make it work.
They figure it out,
and some people might be open to it. Like some people who are matchmaking might be like, okay, I'm Jewish or I'm Catholic or Protestant, but I'd marry somebody who's a monotheist in this, like somebody Judeo-Christian Muslim religions. I'd be open to that, because like they're not like fundamentally attached, like super orthodox kind of, like they're just kind of open.
Right, they're not that committed to whatever that religion is.
Yeah.
I think a good amount of people I interview, I ask them about the religious piece of it, because there's a questionnaire that they like fill out, and then in the interview is where I get like the real scoop, right? Because sometimes if it's on a paper, people kind of, I don't want to say it's scripted, but I want to just get to the bottom of it, not to be judgy. And I tell people, I'm not asking these questions to judge you, just be honest, because I want to bring you like the real deal.
Like, how tied to this are you? Right? You might put a 5 or a 6, but you might actually be like a 2. Like, you're really not that deep into whatever you think it is that you believe.
Right.
Okay, so a lot of times, especially us two, we are on this app called
Clubhouse.
And so that's going to be our next number. I know we haven't had a ton of them. Sure. But I am a part of 13 clubs, many of which don't do anything. Okay? Sadly. But, you get on them and you kind of see what happens, because, like we talked about already, and I think all of us could say the same thing, we're very social people, right? Wherever we can kind of meet people, talk about different things, like we want to kind of be in the mix, right? So I jumped on Clubhouse because of them.
Yeah, we started in November. It's been around since early in the pandemic, like mid to late 2020. It's been around. Yeah. We just joined in November, so what, 3-4 months ago? Yeah.
And so Santana has a
club on Clubhouse.
I feel like you're in like a bunch of stuff. I just get the notifications. I'm like, oh, Santana's talking. Let me see what she's talking about.
Yeah.
It's usually in a room with a bunch of ladies.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
my Clubhouse tribe.
And then she always is like, "Oh, my real life friend Tony's here from church," and so I got to get on there and say something.
That's like that blue check verification. Like I verified you're a real person.
Like, oh, he's good. He's good. Like, we don't have to. He's not lurking. He's good for it. So like, how did the Clubhouse thing start? We'll go with Gerald, and then we'll come back.
I really started because she brought it to my attention. I don't even remember how she learned about it.
Okay, we'll go with Santana.
Yeah, forgive me. I was only transparent.
So, as part of the entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, when I first launched the matchmaking agency, I joined a bunch of Facebook groups. I'm like, I want to connect with more people. I need to build my network. Yes. I need to build, the people I know. So the more people I know, the more people I'm aware of to matchmake people with. So I joined a bunch of Christian women's, like, Facebook groups, stuff like that. I mean, low-key, my motivation was also to scout for people.
Of course.
And in one of these groups, they have a follow for a follow Monday. And I was like, oh, this is cool. So one Monday was Instagram, Facebook, these different things. And then one week they said follow for a follow Clubhouse. Post your Clubhouse name and we'll follow each other. I was like, Clubhouse?
What is that?
What is that? So I did some research, and I was like, I don't know, and then I downloaded the app, and I really didn't think it was gonna be a thing. Like, it didn't seem that appealing to me. I was like, I don't get it. Like, what is this? And then I jumped on, and I've been hooked ever since. It's like audio social media. It's kind of like a Zoom call with no video, and you can just be in the audience, and you hear these dynamic conversations where you're like a fly on the wall in conversations that we really don't have in real life,
That was episode 34, part 1. I had to split it up into 2 parts because we get into Whoopi Goldberg, we get into race and a lot of Black history type stuff. So definitely check out episode 34, part 2 of the Living Numbers podcast. Of course, make sure you guys like, subscribe. You can email the show at onetonyrambles@gmail.com. Follow me on IG at _TonyRambles_. Make sure you like, subscribe, download, follow, share, do all of those great things. Support the show. And I just want to thank you all for listening to the Living Numbers podcast. This is your host, Tony Rambles. And I will see you all in the next ramble.